This podcast is a production of the Brickyard Network. To find out more about our lineup of ceramic podcasts, visit brickyardnetwork.org.
This episode is sponsored by Monkey Stuff. Monkey Stuff makes things for makers. We're inspired every day by the craft and creativity of makers, and design and manufacture tools and accessories to try to make your making life a bit more delightful. Our products are designed in California, by makers and for makers, and manufactured in the USA. Check out our line of pottery accessories and tools at monkeystuff.com. Follow us on Instagram to see what we're up to in our studios, and keep on making great things.
This episode is brought to you by Cornell Studio Supply, located in the Gem City of Dayton, Ohio. Find all your pottery and ceramic sculpture equipment and supplies with the best customer service and world-class workshops. Join us January 16th through the 18th, 2026 for a colored clay and material inclusion workshop with Chris Alvashir and Jillian Park. Visit cornellstudiosupply.com to sign up. Cornell Studio Supply, owned and operated for potters by potters.
Hello, my name is Kathy King, and welcome to the For Flux Sake podcast. I'm coming to you from the Harvard Ceramics program in our fair city, Allston, Massachusetts. I'm here with Rose and Matt Katz of the world-famous Ceramic Materials Workshop, and they are ready to answer your burning questions about clay and glaze. Well, hello, Matt and Rose.
Hey, Kathy.
Hello, Kathy King.
I'm all business today. All business.
She's super serious, you guys.
I'm super serious for this episode now. I'm only kidding. Happy to
I'm
be
still
here,
waiting
though.
for you to be serious about anything.
It's not going to happen. It's going to be
That's
a
April's
special
job.
episode.
She is the serious to your ridiculous.
No, never. So what has been going on?
Well, Kathy, we've had an interesting new thing emerge in the ceramic supply chains, and so many people had sent this to us to ask us questions about what we thought. And what is going on is that there is a ceramic supplier in the UK that is now selling a clay that they advertise as being vitrified at low temperature. And they very specifically say low fire. So I want guesses. Rose, what temperature do you think that this clay body vitrifies at based on the use of the term low fire?
04.
Kathy?
Just to be different, 03.5.
Well,
You always got to be different.
I know, I can't help it.
yeah, this is where definitions get weird, and maybe it's cultural. I mean, the UK definitely has a different perspective on temperature than we do in the US. In the US, low fire is, as Rose is saying, cone 04, cone 03, down at pre-vitrification temperatures. This body specifically says that it is vitrifying at 1160, which is cone 4, which is not what we would define as low temperature. In the States, that is on the lower end of mid-fire, right? Mid-fire is, they'll call 5, 6, but I've seen it published, people say 4 to 8 is mid-fire, but okay. But I would not call that low. So I think that, calling this a low fire body that's vitrified is, that's not exactly where my definitions would go. Now, I think that that's cool that it's vitrifying at cone 4. We've always talked about that. There's a lot of struggle with mid-temperature bodies and under vitrifying. That has definitely been a major concern that we talk about, because oftentimes what happens is a lot of bodies at, say, cone 5 and cone 6 are going to have 3% absorption. And, as we say all the time, the actual standard for absorption is 0.5% absorption. So if this body is vitrified at 1160, that is fantastic. That is a great thing to have. And kudos to them for doing it.
Yeah. Too bad we can't get it here in the US. That would be fun to put into our profiling regime to see what it does.
see how it performs, because they do, interestingly enough, they don't just list the one temperature. They do the thing where they list it as a temperature range, where they do say it's 1060, which is cone 04, to 1220, which is cone 6. And if it's vitrifying at cone 04, we know from all the clay body profiling, generally that means that it's going to have sculpture levels of absorption at those lower temperatures, which is higher. And there's nothing wrong with that. Part of the reason why we make sculpture at low temperature is because we're not vitrifying those bodies, because sculpture doesn't have to be vitrified, right? Vitrification is about keeping water and mold and bacteria out of our clay bodies. And you're not putting your sculpture in the dishwasher, and you're not eating off of your sculpture. So it's
I
okay
do that
to
all the time.
I know. Somebody's doing it. You know it. Somebody is doing it. Actually, I have done. No, you know what? I just caught myself. I have done that, like before a dinner party, and like instead of like having a dust, I just throw them in the dishwasher for a quick wash.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I've got a lovely bust of myself from a.
You think we could put
incredible
Iron
artist.
Girl in the dishwasher? You think we could put her in the
we have a
bottom?
giant sculpture.
Called
That
Iron
does,
Girl.
She's sitting on a clothes iron, so it's a sculpture of a girl sitting on a clothes iron from our friend Chris Lyons.
So sweet.
Well, whatever you guys are into.
It sits next to the kitchen, so it picks up all that kitchen grime.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely can be a thing. But Kathy, your sculpture is so shiny. How did you get it so
I know.
shiny, Kathy?
Everybody's talking about it. It's crazy. So anyway, what were you saying?
Yeah, but from a clay perspective, I think that this is a big step up. And, I certainly encourage other clay companies to look at making sure their clays are actually vitrified. That standard, just to mention again, that's not a flexibility. You see a lot of people really huffing the copium of really trying to justify having lower absorption rates on their mid-temperature bodies. But like the standard is a standard for a reason. Like it is there to keep mold and bacteria and water brings in the mold and bacteria from the interiors of your clay bodies. And so we need vitrification. Being at cone 6 or cone 4 doesn't change the requirement of vitrification. So kudos to that. If somebody's got some of this, we certainly would love to test it. If we can get 5 pounds of it, a couple
right
of
off
kilos.
the block.
Right off the block. Double bagged.
Your mail person is going to hate you because there's going to be about 20 blocks of clay being
that wouldn't be the first time.
Literally
be the first time.
I bet. Today's episode is brought to you by the Rosenfield Collection of Functional Ceramic Art. The collection exists as an online source for research and inspiration, featuring photos of thousands of objects made by over 800 artists. The images are high quality and can be used with no permission required. To find out more, visit www.rosenfieldcollection.com.
Glazes don't make sense, but that's why Rose and I are here at ceramicmaterialsworkshop.com, helping translate glazes for real ceramicists like you. So join us for our brand new class starting October 1st. It's for everyone from beginners to masters. We clear up all the mysteries of glazes to make them work for you. Join us at ceramicmaterialsworkshop.com for making glazes make sense.
All right, y'all. Well, let's get to a question as the day is a-wasting. Our first question comes from Stephen Brown from the UK. And Stephen has a question or questioning things Matt has said in the past. I love that. Oh, yes.
Hey all, it's Steve Brown from Herefordshire, the UK. I've got a quick question about what Matt mentioned the other week or a couple of weeks ago, about the last 100 degrees Celsius is the most critical and the most important part of the firing, and nothing really much else happens outside of that. What I'm confused about is if I'm firing to say 1300, so you're saying that it's between 1200 and 1300 which is the most critical, most important part of the firing, and outside of that nothing really else happens. But what if I'm firing to 1200? then the time shifts from 1100 to 1200, which is the most critical part. So it seems still something is still happening between 1100 and 1200. So I'm a bit confused about this last 100 degrees Celsius and the fact that nothing else much happens outside of that. If you can go into more detail, that'd be great. I do reduction firing, and I do find sometimes with longer firings, especially with my Shino, there's definitely a sort of different look to it. It seems to be more golden, and it seems to have more things going on in the finished glaze firing. So maybe I'm just imagining it, but definitely longer firing seems to work better. So it seems that it does influence it a little bit. But if you can go into more detail, that'd be great. Thanks for the show. Really love it. Thank you.
Okay, well, you guys talk amongst yourselves because I have to go get a Celsius to Fahrenheit translate.
13, it's basically cone 10. 1300 is technically cone like 11 and a half. Okay. But we sort of say casually that, 1300 is cone 10. So that's sort of the set temperature. So that's whatever, 20. What did I recently see that cone 10 is actually 2345 in Fahrenheit? So literally the numerical order 2345, which is convenient. That's not why cone 10 is cone 10. But at medium rate in Fahrenheit, it's 2345. But yeah, 1285 is medium rate, 1305 is fast rate for cone 10 in Celsius. Yeah, it's a great question, Stephen, because it really comes down to what your materials are chemically designed to do, literally what we started today's episode talking about. And so if you're firing to 1300, the clay body and the glazes, chemically, if they are designed to complete, that's a really important detail, they are designed to be done at cone 10,
You mean your chemical reaction is done?
Yes, which is the big deal. We're getting to vitrification. That vitrification process takes the last 100 degrees C. Some people argue 150 to give it a little bit more room. That's fine. But really, it's the 100 degrees C when all the melting takes place, when the chemistry is designed to be done at that temperature. And much like we were talking about with this quote unquote low fire or mid temperature vitrified clay body, what's going on in that is that if the body is designed to vitrify at 1160, which is what they're saying their temperature is, those chemical reactions are starting at 1060. And that's the alteration of the chemistry. They had to tweak the chemistry to start melting earlier and to finish earlier than you do for high temperature, which is oftentimes why we have such a problem with mid-temperature bodies being underfired, is because rather than the people designing the clay bodies changing the chemistry to start earlier than it finish earlier, honestly, a lot of mid-temperature bodies that I've seen, when we look at them at a firing curve, when we look at how they mature over a range of temperatures, what you see is they're just taking a cone 10 body, telling you to fire to cone 6, and so it's underfired. You get that 3% absorption because that's sort of where most cone 10 bodies will be at cone 6. And that's super common. Like, this is one of my crazy person conspiracy theories, but I would not be shocked if a lot of mid-temperature bodies are literally, you take the same body and you put it in one box and you stamp cone 10 on it, and you put it in the same body in a different box and stamp cone 6 on it, but say that the absorption is 3% and at cone 10 it's 0.5%.
So it's interesting what he had said, though. So he says his Shino glaze. I mean, we'll forgive him for the Shino glaze right now. But it says it benefits from a longer, hotter firing. So that means that glaze is not done at the cooler temperature. That means it wants the hotter temperature to complete its chemical reaction. So it looks better at the hotter temperature.
And Shinos are notorious for that, because Shinos, although everybody sort of treats them like normal glazes, Shinos definitely fall under the category of what we call as special effect glazes, because they have a very different chemistry than every other glaze in your life.
Like, breaks my brain thinking about their chemistry.
Well, they are completely different. And just for those of you who don't know, we always say all glazes have two fluxes, an alkali metal and an alkaline earth flux, and those two fluxes work in conjunction to stabilize the glaze. Shino glazes are the one type of glaze that only uses alkali metal fluxes, lithium, sodium, and potassium, and then to compensate for the chemical hyperactivity of the alkali metal fluxes, because they are like totally like wired up on amphetamines, like crazy fluxes. That they then have crazy high silicon alumina levels, which make them harder to melt. So Shinos are, again, and I think, Steve is falling into this logic trap. And this is why Rose was being a little bit snide about Shinos, and we don't say the nicest thing about Shinos, because everybody, like, you go to a studio, every studio's got a Shino glaze. Everybody acts like Shino glazes are normal, and then they just expect them to work with like your normal palette of like your glossy red and your brown matte glaze. Like, no, Shinos are other. They are definitely something different. So the fact that your Shino glaze, like, is its chemistry really designed for 1300, as Rose is implying, or is it 1315? Because again, the other thing to remember is we're not firing to a temperature. It is the temperature and the heating rate that matter. So even when I say cone 10 is 12, I said it earlier, I said cone 10 is 1285 at the medium rate, which is 60 degrees C per hour for the last 100 degrees C. But I also said cone 10 is 1305. Well, that's at 150 degrees an hour for the last 100 degrees C. And actually in the cone chart, there's that last 100 degrees C because it depends on time and temperature to get there. But it is still that point when it is actually melting. And I always like to think of it, it's like when you boil water. When you boil water, you put the pot on the stove and nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. The water's getting hotter, but it's still water until you get to 100 degrees C, 212 degrees F, that all of a sudden it boils. And our glazes are the same way. All that time in the kiln is building up the heat until that reaction happens, and that is during the last 100 degrees C, 180 degrees F of the firing, and that's why it matters. But all the rest of the time,
you just use Fahrenheit, Kathy.
I know.
Did it twice. Although, did anybody catch what I just did? I screwed with everybody's brains. You ready? Did you hear it?
What? No.
Well, I was saying this is why Fahrenheit sucks. Ready? No. I said, and I say this all the time, but I don't point it out. Now we can take the time to point it out.
Oh man, we got questions to get to.
No, I'm doing this. The Fahrenheit people get so grumpy at me, but hold on. This is why this is bad. So what did I say? I said it's during the last 100 degrees C, 180 degrees of the firing. But then when I was talking about boiling water, I said the last 100 degrees C, 212 degrees of for the boiling temperature of water, because
at sea level
heating rates change the Fahrenheit to Celsius calculation. And so when I'm talking absolute temperature, that's 180 degrees for that one, because it's, and then when you're talking about the boiling rate, it actually changes. This is a huge thing that makes people's brains bleed, but they are actually different.
Okay, let's move on.
Well, if anyone out there is still listening to this podcast, I'm going to be shocked.
They're all listening. They're still here. They love it.
I'm pretty sure we may have
Send
lost
us an email
a
if
couple.
you love it. More temperature talk.
Okay, yeah, Temp Talk, our new segment. Okay, well, let's move on to our next question. This question comes from Peyton Flynn from Philadelphia, PA. And Peyton has a question about higher temperatures for higher absorption.
Hey, for Flux Sake, this is Peyton calling from Philadelphia. So my question is about absorption levels in mid-range firings. So I normally fire to cone 6 and have been thinking a lot about the absorption dilemma and the lack of full vitrification. So I've been shopping around a bit and I came across a clay that says it has a firing range of cone 5 to cone 8. And it says that porosity is 0.0% at 1260 C. So I guess my question is if I'm using a clay body that is normally rated to go to cone 6, but it has like a 3% absorption around that temperature, why are we not just firing those clays to cone 8? I guess I'm wondering if it would achieve a similar result as this clay is showing if it's pushed to the higher end of the temperature range. I kind of figure that the glazes will obviously respond differently in the higher temperature range, so I've been a little bit nervous because I don't want them to just run all over the place or whatever would happen, just varying results. But let me know what you think. Thanks.
Great question.
Wow. So this sounds like a very similar situation and question. What do you all think?
Oh, it is a similar one. Temperature and clay bodies, Matt's favorite.
Well, it is a very, very similar question, but it's sort of in reverse of, sort of asking that perspective of what happens if you do fire hotter instead of firing colder. So now we do have exactly the same switch, but it has the same question, because if you're firing to cone 6 and the clay body's not vitrified, then yes, firing it to a higher temperature will vitrify the clay. And that's again, this thing about sort of doing a firing curve that we were talking about, that in the firing curve, you see the body mature. So you can see what it's doing at one temperature, and then you see what it's doing at the next temperature and the temperature beyond that. And we have this commercial clay body profile that you can all see on our website, because every clay body has a curve. So there's literally when it's underfired and when it's correctly fired and when it's overfired. It's all documented.
Yeah, but Peyton also said something too, though. I mean, yeah, she's going to increase her temperature for firing, but then that's, open up a whole nother can of worms with your glazes.
Yeah, really big one. And going back to what I'd said to Stephen, that it's about when the compositions that you're using, when their chemistry is designed to be done. And that's the harder thing. So if Peyton's got a bunch of glazes and the chemistry is done at cone 6, what happens when you overfire those glazes? Well, glazes will run when you overfire them. That is the natural reaction, because you drop the viscosity of the glass and they'll start to run. And Peyton even mentioned that in the question. And so if you are going to fire to a higher temperature, that's fine. You will get a better performance for the clay body, but you have to adjust your glaze's temperature to that temperature. And that's the big trick. Now, temperature, if you study glaze chemistry, is not that hard of a conversion. It's a pretty linear relationship, but you don't just go throw in materials at things. You have to look at the chemistry, understand why it's melting at the temperature it is, and then adjust it to a new temperature. And that you certainly can do. Now, some people go, maybe the glaze will be okay at cone 8 when it was at cone 6.
That's why we always say you got to test it. Test it first. Don't just assume it's going to work.
But even if you test it, it doesn't even take into account things like the thickness of application, because thicker glazes will run more. So if you get an application that is on the thicker side and you fire it to cone 8, that could be a really horrible meltdown situation. And so it really does come to justifying the chemistry for the temperature. But Peyton's point is exactly right. And this is sort of the theme of today, which is that
we have a theme. Nice.
Don't tell anybody.
We're halfway through. We're almost done, and now we've established our theme. Yeah, good.
But that this is the really important thing, because what are your firing temperatures? We have this concept in our head. Oh, that I fired a cone 10, I fired a cone 6. Yeah, that might be the general range at which you're firing, but the temperature at which your clay bodies and glazes complete their chemical reaction depends on their inherent chemistry. And so you need to have compositions, both in your glazes and clay bodies.
Well, that's a new one.
that we give it up. We're now done with talking about clay bodies and glazes. This is a glazes show from now on.
Just smush them together.
That's
like
right.
Play-Doh.
Cover all our bases. Yeah.
But that they need to be adjusted to complete at that temperature. And that's why I say it's so controversial to have clay bodies that don't finish their chemical reaction at the prescribed temperature. And it's also controversial to have glazes that you underfire or overfire. And, that's a real thing too. Like there's a ton of glazes out in the world. Like, one of the things that really drives me crazy is you have a lot of people that work with glazes and like, well, this glaze, it's always really runny. Like that. This is just a runny glaze.
Mm-hmm.
Every time anyone has ever shown me a glaze that they say that is a runny glaze, when I dial down and look at the chemistry, I can easily identify that is an overfired glaze, that they keep firing it to cone 6, but it's really a cone 4 glaze. And it shines like the sun when you look at that chemistry. And so really understanding why that chemistry is doing what it's doing really changes your perspective on working.
So you're telling me that tiles talk to you.
I believe that. All right. Well, y'all, shockingly, we've run out of time. I know. I can't believe it. I know. Where does the time go? Anyway.
Well, there can be more time, Kathy.
Really? Where?
If people want to join our Patreon and support for Flux Sake on Patreon, we now have our new show on Patreon.
Woo-hoo.
Called Flux You.
Yes.
Yay.
And it's so much fun.
We are having a blast recording Flux You. It's loose. It's a little bit blue. It's definitely Glaze Talk After Dark, not for the young ones. But we go deep. We answer
you
everybody's
might be overselling
questions.
this.
I certainly do. Kathy tries to be a good person.
Grab a nice Merlot and get comfy as we start. Flux
Glass
You.
is not needed.
Yeah, it's
just
not
drink
that.
from the bottle.
But it is a lot of fun.
Rose is chugging straight from the bottle.
I'm clutching my box of wine.
Big straw in it.
Yep.
But we have a new episode every month that we're calling Flux You that you can only get if you support us on Patreon for monthly support to help us keep doing what we're doing. So more stupidity, a whole different show though. We having recorded it now, it's definitely a fun thing to do.
Awesome. Well, until I see you next, Matt and Rose, farewell.
Next time, Kathy.
Au revoir.
Well, folks, that's it for this week's episode of For Flux Sake. I'd like to thank the listeners who submitted questions this week. And if you want your question answered on the show, shoot us an email at forfluxsakepodcast@gmail.com. So join us next time. And when in your studio, remember what Rose always says.
Always remember to test, test, test. This is a test of the emergency glaze system. Beep. Hey, for Flux Sake friends, wish you could hang with us a little more each month? Well, you can come join us at our For Flux Sake fan club on Patreon. You'll get discounts on our new merch, chances to chat with us during live hangouts, and extra episodes just for you. Find us at patreon.com/For Flux Sake podcast. We'd love to see you there.